You have 10 minutes left before something closes that was meant to open your life. A hidden letter exists with your name written across the front, and what's inside isn't what you think. The inheritance waiting for you has nothing to do with money, property, or anything you can hold in your hands. What you're about to discover in the next few minutes will explain why certain doors wouldn't open, why specific people left, and why you felt this strange pull towards something you couldn't name. Time is moving whether you're ready or not. Right now, as you're reading this, the universe is closing one chapter of your life and opening another. But here's what most people miss. The transition isn't gentle. It's abrupt, uncomfortable, and often disguised as loss. You've been feeling it, haven't you? That restlessness, the sense that everything familiar is suddenly foreign. People you trusted now feel distant. Plans you made now feel wrong. This isn't confusion, it's recalibration. There's a reason you stopped scrolling when you saw this. Your spirit recognized something before your mind could process it. That split second of hesitation, that quiet knowing that whispered, "Pay attention," wasn't random. You're being called forward into something that's been waiting for you since before you were born. The inheritance I'm talking about isn't written in a will. It's written in your destiny. And the clock is ticking because you're standing at the exact moment where it either activates or passes you by. Let me be direct. You've been carrying weight that was never yours to carry. Emotional baggage from people who didn't know how to process their own pain. Expectations that were placed on you before you could speak. Limiting beliefs that were handed down like family heirlooms. All of that? It ends now. The inheritance you're about to step into requires empty hands. You can't receive what's coming while you're still gripping what's gone. Think about what's been falling apart lately. Relationships that suddenly shifted. Opportunities that dissolved without explanation. Certainties that crumbled overnight. You thought you were losing. But what if you were being freed? What if every closed door was actually a locked exit, and something beyond your understanding was making sure you didn't walk back into what would have destroyed you? Here's where it gets strange. The letter I mentioned isn't physical. It's encoded in the pattern of your life. Every setback you've experienced, every moment of confusion, every time you felt abandoned or misunderstood, those weren't random events. They were words, sentences, paragraphs in a message that's been trying to reach you. And when you finally read it correctly, everything shifts. The pain recontextualizes. The delays make sense. The loneliness transforms into preparation. You know how sometimes you'll be going about your day and suddenly feel this overwhelming urge to change everything? To quit your job, move cities, cut ties, start over? That's not impulsiveness. That's the inheritance calling. It's the part of you that remembers what you came here to do, trying to override the part of you that's been programmed to play it safe. And right now, that call is getting louder because the window is narrowing. 10 minutes is both literal and metaphorical. Literally, you have this moment right now to make a choice, to keep reading or to scroll away, to lean into what your spirit is screaming, or to silence it again with logic and fear. Metaphorically, you're in a divine window where the veil between who you've been and who you're becoming is thin enough to step through. These windows don't stay open, they close. And when they do, you'll spend months or years trying to find your way back to this exact feeling. The inheritance isn't a thing, it's a frequency. It's a level of existence where synchronicities aren't rare, they're constant. Where doors don't just open, they swing wide before you even knock. Where the right people don't show up eventually, they appear exactly when needed. Where your intuition isn't a quiet whisper you second guess, it's a clear voice you trust completely. This is what's waiting. But you can't access it from where you're standing. You have to move. And moving means letting go of the story you've been telling yourself about who you are and what you deserve. You've been operating from a narrative written by wounds, by people who didn't see you, by a world that needed you small. That story says you're lucky to survive. The inheritance says you were built to thrive. That story says take what you can get. The inheritance says everything you need is already assigned to you. That story says prove yourself. The inheritance says you're already chosen. I know what you're thinking. This sounds too good, too easy, too convenient. You've been disappointed before. You've believed in things that didn't pan out. You've hoped for change that never came. So why should this be different? Because this time, you're not chasing something external. You're not waiting for permission. You're not looking for validation. You're being handed something that's already yours. All you have to do is recognize it and receive it. But here's the catch. Recognition requires sight you haven't been using. You've been trained to see with your eyes, to trust only what you can measure and prove. The inheritance exists in the realm beyond that. It's felt, not seen. It's known, not learned. It's accessed through surrender, not force. And that's where most people stumble. They want the formula, the steps, the guarantee, but the inheritance doesn't work that way. It responds to faith, not certainty. What's been happening to you recently isn't punishment, it's preparation. Every person who walked away cleared space. Every plan that collapsed created room. Every moment of solitude strengthened your connection to the only voice that matters, yours. Or rather, the voice of the part of you that knows why you're here and what you're capable of. That voice has been drowned out by noise for so long that you forgot it existed. But lately, in the quiet moments, you've been hearing it again, and it's saying something you've been afraid to believe. It's saying you're ready, that everything you've survived was training, that the next chapter isn't just different, it's unprecedented, that what's about to unfold will make every previous version of your life look like a rough draft. You feel it, don't you? That tremor of possibility mixed with terror. That's the inheritance activating. Your system is recalibrating to hold a frequency it's never held before. It's uncomfortable because you're expanding, and expansion always feels like breaking before it feels like breakthrough. The people around you might not understand what's happening. They'll call it a phase, a breakdown, a quarter life or midlife crisis. They'll try to talk you back into the familiar because your evolution threatens their comfort. Let them talk. The inheritance isn't for them, it's for you, and it requires you to care more about your calling than their confusion. This doesn't mean you become cruel or dismissive. It means you stop explaining yourself to people who aren't meant to understand. You stop seeking approval from those who are still asleep to their own inheritance. You've been asking for signs, for confirmation, for proof that you're on the right path. But what if the chaos is the sign? What if the discomfort is the confirmation? What if the fact that nothing makes sense anymore is the proof that you're exactly where you need to be? Growth doesn't feel like stability. It feels like free fall. And right now, you're mid-air, terrified that there's no ground beneath you. But there is. You just can't see it yet because you're still operating from the old elevation. Once you land in the new, you'll realize the ground was always there. You were just learning to trust the fall. The hidden letter I mentioned at the beginning contains 3 things. First, the truth about what you've been through and why it had to happen that way. Second, the revelation of what you're moving toward and why it's nothing like what you imagined. Third, the activation code that unlocks everything that's been dormant inside you. You don't read this letter with your eyes. You read it with your willingness, your openness, your decision to stop resisting and start receiving. And that decision has to happen now, not tomorrow when you feel more ready, not next week when things calm down, not after you've figured everything out. Now, while the window is open, while the energy is aligned, while your spirit is awake enough to recognize what's being offered. Hesitation isn't caution here, it's refusal. And refusal of your inheritance doesn't make it go away. It just delays it until you're willing. But every delay costs you time you can't get back, experiences you won't have, connections you won't make, versions of yourself you won't become. So what happens in the next few minutes matters more than you realize. Not because I'm saying it, because your soul is screaming it. You feel it in your chest. That tightness, that urgency, that sense that something is about to shift and you need to be present for it. Don't scroll past this feeling. Don't minimize it. Don't rationalize it away. This is the inheritance knocking, and it's asking one simple question. Are you ready to receive what's always been yours? I'm ready to receive what's always been mine. That statement either just landed in your chest like truth, or it bounced off like a concept you're trying on. The difference between those two reactions determines everything that happens next. Because receiving isn't passive. It's not sitting back and waiting for things to fall into your lap. It's the most active state of being there is. It's saying yes before you see the full picture. It's moving before the path is clear. It's trusting that what's meant for you will meet you halfway, but you have to start walking first. You've been standing at the edge of your new life for longer than you think. Months, maybe years, waiting for permission that's never coming. Waiting to feel ready for something that only makes you ready by doing it. The inheritance doesn't activate because you finally figured everything out. It activates because you stopped needing to figure everything out before you moved. Most people die with their inheritance untouched. Not because they weren't worthy, not because they weren't chosen, because they spent their entire lives waiting for a feeling of certainty that doesn't exist on this side of the leap. They wanted guarantees, maps, step-by-step instructions with no room for error. They wanted to know exactly how it would unfold before they committed. And that's the trap. Your inheritance doesn't reveal itself to the cautious. It reveals itself to the committed. You don't get the vision and then take action. You take action and then the vision clarifies. You don't receive confirmation and then move. You move and then confirmation finds you mid-stride. Right now, there's a version of your future that's fully formed, completely ready, waiting in a frequency just above where you're currently operating. It's not in some distant timeline years from now. It's here, adjacent to your current reality, close enough to touch if you knew where to reach, but you can't access it from where you are. You have to shift first. And shifting means releasing the grip on what feels safe even though it's suffocating you. That job that pays the bills but drains your soul, that's not security. That's a slow death with benefits. That relationship that's comfortable but completely misaligned with where you're going, that's not love. That's fear wearing a familiar face. That version of yourself that everyone recognizes and expects you to be, that's not you. That's the compromise you made to belong somewhere you've outgrown. The inheritance asks you to become unrecognizable to the people who thought they knew you. It asks you to disappoint the version of yourself that was built on other people's expectations. It asks you to walk away from guaranteed mediocrity toward uncertain magnificence, and that choice terrifies most people into paralysis. They'll stand at the edge, feeling the call, knowing something's waiting, but they'll never jump. They'll tell themselves they're being responsible, practical, realistic, but what they're really being is afraid, and there's no judgment in that. Fear is human. What matters is whether you let fear make your decisions or just inform them, because the fear isn't going away. You don't wait until you're not afraid. You move while you're afraid. That's what courage actually is, not the absence of fear. The decision that what you're moving toward matters more than what you're afraid of. You've already survived everything that was supposed to break you. The betrayals that should have destroyed your ability to trust. The losses that should have collapsed your faith. The failures that should have convinced you to stop trying. But you're still here, still standing, still open enough to have found your way to these words. That alone proves something about your capacity that you keep underestimating. You're stronger than the version of yourself you keep protecting, more resilient than the limitations you keep accepting, more powerful than the smallness you keep settling for. The hidden letter reveals why certain people had to leave your life, not because you did something wrong, because you were about to do something right, and they couldn't exist in the frequency you were shifting into. Their presence would have slowed your acceleration, diluted your focus, kept you tethered to a version of reality you were meant to outgrow. So, they were removed, not as punishment, as protection. The universe doesn't take things from you. It clears space for what you've been asking for. Every closed door you've been mourning, that was redirection. Every person who ghosted you, that was recalibration. Every plan that fell apart, that was intervention. You've been interpreting loss as evidence that something's wrong with you, when actually it's evidence that something's finally going right. Your energy is changing, your frequency is rising, and not everything from the old octave can come with you into the new one. This is where most people sabotage themselves. They feel the shift happening, they sense they're on the verge of something, and then they panic and try to grab back what was just released. They text the ex, they take the job they just quit, they apologize for boundaries they needed to set. They shrink back down to fit into spaces they've outgrown, because the unknown ahead feels more dangerous than the known behind. But going backward isn't actually an option. You can try. You can force yourself back into old patterns, old relationships, old versions of yourself. But it won't fit anymore. You've changed at a cellular level, and trying to unlive that change only creates suffering. The inheritance moves you forward whether you cooperate or not. The only question is whether you go willingly or kicking and screaming, whether you trust the process or fight it every step, whether you see the dismantling as destruction or renovation. Same experience, completely different relationship to it. And your relationship to it determines how long it takes and how much it hurts. There's something you need to understand about timing. What you're ready for and what's ready for you aren't always synchronized. Sometimes you're ready before the opportunity arrives. Sometimes the opportunity arrives before you're ready. Right now they're aligned. That's rare. That's the window. And windows don't stay open indefinitely. They close when the energy shifts, when the season changes, when the alignment passes. You've missed windows before. You know what that feels like. The regret, the wondering, the knowing you were right there and you hesitated. This isn't that. This is the chance to choose differently. The second part of the hidden letter reveals what you're actually moving toward. And it's nothing like what you've been imagining. You've been asking for specific things, specific outcomes, specific people. But what's coming is better than specific. It's aligned. And aligned always beats specific because aligned takes into account variables you can't see yet. Factors you don't know to consider. Possibilities you're not aware exist. You've been praying for a Honda when there's a Tesla waiting. Asking for a promotion when there's an entire company waiting to be built. Hoping someone comes back when someone unprecedented is about to arrive. Your imagination is limited by your experience. You can only want what you know exists. But the inheritance operates beyond the boundary of your knowing. It brings you things you didn't know to want, experiences you couldn't have conceived, versions of yourself you didn't know were possible. That's why you have to stop being so specific in your demands and start being more open in your reception. Stop telling the universe exactly how it needs to show up and start trusting that it knows what you need better than you do. This requires a level of surrender that feels like death to the ego. Your ego wants control. It wants to manage outcomes. It wants to know the plan so it can prepare and protect and prevent. But the inheritance doesn't flow to the controlling. It flows to the open, the willing, the trusting. You can't receive with clenched fists. You have to open your hands And opening your hands means releasing your grip on how you thought it was supposed to go. What if everything that didn't work out was protecting you from a life that would have been fine but not extraordinary? What if every rejection was redirection towards something your limited perspective couldn't see yet? What if the waiting wasn't punishment, but preparation for something so aligned that you needed this exact amount of time to become someone who could hold it? You've been fighting the process when you should have been surrendering to it, questioning the timing when you should have been trusting it, resisting the changes when you should have been cooperating with them. The third part of the hidden letter is the activation code. It's not a phrase or a ritual or a practice. It's a decision. The decision to stop living like someone who's trying to earn what's already theirs. The decision to stop auditioning for a role you've already been cast in. The decision to stop proving yourself to people who will never see you clearly because they're looking through the lens of their own limitations. You've been performing, trying to convince, working to demonstrate your worthiness, and every ounce of energy you've spent doing that has delayed your inheritance, because the inheritance only comes when you stop seeking it from external validation and start claiming it from internal knowing. You are the evidence, not what you've accomplished, not who approves of you, not what you can prove. You, your existence, your willingness, your openness. That's the only credential required. And the moment you stop looking outside yourself for permission and start recognizing that you've always been authorized, everything shifts. Not because the external world changes, because your relationship to it does. You stop asking and start claiming. Stop hoping and start knowing. Stop waiting and start receiving. The inheritance isn't waiting for you to be ready. It's waiting for you to stop pretending you're not. There's a difference between preparation and procrastination dressed up as humility. You've been saying you're not ready, when what you really mean is you're afraid of what happens when you can no longer hide behind the excuse of not being enough. Because once you step into this, there's no more buffer between you and your potential. No more blaming circumstances. No more pointing to external barriers. Just you and the fullness of what you were designed to carry. And that's terrifying. Not because you might fail, because you might succeed. And success means responsibility, visibility, accountability. It means people will have opinions about you that you can't control. It means some will celebrate you, and others will resent you for having what they convinced themselves was impossible. It means you can't stay small and comfortable and hidden anymore. But here's what they don't tell you about the inheritance. It doesn't arrive with a manual. There's no instruction booklet, no step-by-step guide, no guarantee that you'll know what to do with it when it shows up. And that's intentional, because the inheritance isn't about having all the answers. It's about having the courage to move forward without them. It's about trusting that the same force that brought it to you will guide you in how to steward it. You've been waiting for certainty before you move, but certainty is the reward of movement, not the requirement for it. You move first, then clarity comes. You step first, then the path appears. You claim first, then the evidence follows. The inheritance doesn't come with proof, it comes with possibility. And possibility requires you to act as if before you see as if. This is where most people stall. They want the manifestation before the embodiment, the result before the identity shift, the external confirmation before the internal commitment. But it doesn't work that way. You have to become the person who has it before you have it. And becoming that person means making decisions from that place right now. Not later, when it's easier. Not eventually, when you feel ready. Now, when it still feels like a stretch. When it still requires faith. When it still looks like you're acting above your station. What decisions would you make if you fully believed the inheritance was already yours? What would you stop tolerating? What conversations would you have? What boundaries would you set? What opportunities would you pursue? What energy would you refuse to engage with? You already know the answers. You've known them for a while. You've just been waiting for permission to act on them. This is your permission. Not from me. From the part of you that's been screaming underneath the noise of doubt and fear and conditioning. The part that knows, that's always known. It's always. That's been trying to get your attention through restlessness and dissatisfaction and that persistent feeling that you're meant for something more. That feeling isn't lying to you. It's orienting you, pulling you toward alignment, toward the life that's been set aside with your name on it. But you have to move toward it. It won't chase you. The inheritance doesn't beg. It waits, patiently, quietly, for you to stop arguing with your own worthiness and step into what's been prepared. And here's the part that might sting. Some of what you're holding on to right now is blocking what's trying to reach you. Not because those things are bad, because they're taking up space that needs to be emptied for the new to enter. That relationship that's been on life support for 2 years. That job you've outgrown but keep clinging to because it's familiar. That version of yourself you keep defending even though you know she's not who you're becoming. That city that no longer resonates, but you're afraid to leave. That belief system that worked for the old version of you, but suffocates the emerging one. You know what needs to go. You've known for months, maybe years. You've just been hoping you could keep it and still receive what's next. You can't. Not because the universe is punishing you, because physics doesn't allow two things to occupy the same space. Something has to move. And since the inheritance won't squeeze itself into your current life has to expand, or release, or transform. This is the part where people get stuck in negotiation, trying to figure out the minimum they have to release to get the maximum result, trying to keep one foot in the old while reaching for the new, trying to hedge their bets. But the inheritance doesn't respond to hedging. It responds to wholehearted movement, not reckless, wholehearted. There's a difference. Reckless is reactionary. Wholehearted is intentional. Reckless burns bridges. Wholehearted builds new ones while honoring what the old ones taught you. Reckless is driven by fear of missing out. Wholehearted is drawn by alignment with what's calling. You're not being asked to destroy your life. You're being invited to evolve it. And evolution requires shedding. Snakes don't negotiate with their old skin. Trees don't bargain with their dead leaves. They release what no longer serves so new growth can emerge. You're in a season of release, and you can either resist it and make it painful or cooperate with it and make it purposeful. The choice has always been yours. Now let's talk about the timeline. You've been asking when. When will it happen? When will things shift? When will you finally see the breakthrough? And the answer is going to frustrate you because it's not a date. It's a frequency. The inheritance doesn't operate on calendar time. It operates on alignment time. And alignment time moves at the speed of your internal shifts, not your external efforts. You could work for 10 years at the wrong frequency and see nothing. Or you could shift your frequency in a moment and watch everything reorganize around you within weeks. This is why some people seem to have overnight success. It's not overnight. It's that they finally aligned with the frequency of what they were trying to create, and the universe rushed to meet them there. Frequency isn't about positive thinking or forced affirmations or pretending everything's fine when it's not. Frequency is about the energy you're actually operating from, the beliefs you're actually holding, the identity you're actually embodying. You can say affirmations all day while fundamentally believing you're unworthy. You can visualize abundance while operating from scarcity. You can declare you're ready while making choices that prove you're not. The universe doesn't respond to your words. It responds to your frequency. And your frequency is determined by your unspoken beliefs, your automatic reactions, your default choices when no one's watching. What do you do when you think no one will know? What thoughts do you entertain when you're alone? What stories do you tell yourself about why things are the way they are? That's your frequency. And if your frequency is still tuned to lack, limitation, unworthiness, or victimhood, the inheritance can't reach you, not because you're being punished, because frequencies don't match. It's like trying to listen to an FM station on an AM radio. The signal is broadcasting. You're just not tuned to receive it. So the real question isn't when, it's what frequency are you operating from right now? And if that frequency doesn't match what you're calling in, what needs to shift? This is where the work gets internal, unglamorous, uncomfortable. Because shifting frequency means confronting the beliefs you've been avoiding, the ones you inherited from your family, the ones you developed to survive situations you're no longer in, the ones you picked up from a world that benefits from you staying small. And you have to decide which ones are actually yours and which ones you're ready to release. Not because someone told you to, because you recognize they're no longer true for the version of you that's emerging. This isn't about becoming someone new. It's about remembering who you were before the world taught you to shrink, before disappointment taught you to expect less, before rejection taught you to protect more, before failure taught you to risk less. There's a version of you that existed before all that conditioning. Wild, open, trusting, expectant. That version didn't question whether they deserved good things. They just reached for them. That version didn't ask permission to take up space. They just existed fully. That version didn't perform worthiness. They knew it was inherent. The inheritance is calling that version back, not the child version, the integrated version. The one who has the wisdom of everything you've been through but isn't defined by it. The one who learned from the pain but isn't imprisoned by it. The one who respects the past but isn't controlled by it. That version is who you're becoming. And the inheritance is the birthright of that version, not as a reward for suffering, as recognition of completion. You've completed a cycle. You've learned what that season was meant to teach you. And now you're being moved into the next level. But you can't take everything with you. Some things served the last level. They won't serve this one. And trying to drag them forward will only slow your transition. So here's what you do. You get honest, brutally honest, about what's actually working and what you're keeping out of fear or obligation or habit. You look at your relationships, your routines, your environments, your thoughts, your choices. And you ask, does this frequency match where I'm going or where I've been? And if it doesn't match, you let it go. Not violently, not with drama, just with clarity. You stop feeding it your energy. You stop defending it. You stop trying to make it fit. You acknowledge what it was. You honor what it taught you. And you release it back to the universe with gratitude. Because holding on to what's complete doesn't make you loyal. It makes you stuck. And the inheritance doesn't come to people who are stuck. It comes to people who are in motion. People who are making space. People who trust that what's leaving is making room for what's arriving. So you create that space intentionally. You clear out the closet. You unfollow the accounts. You stop answering calls that drain you. You end conversations that go nowhere. You quit showing up to places where your presence isn't valued. And you do it without announcement, without explanation, without needing anyone to understand. Because this isn't about them. This is about you aligning with your own frequency. And your frequency doesn't need validation. It needs consistency. It needs you to stop betraying yourself in small ways that you've convinced yourself don't matter. They matter. Every time you say yes when you mean no. Every time you dim your light so someone else feels comfortable. Every time you accept treatment you know isn't aligned. You're teaching the universe that this is your frequency. And the universe will keep sending you experiences that match it. Not because it's cruel, because it's obedient. It gives you what you show it you believe you deserve. So if you want the inheritance, you have to start acting like someone who already has it. Not performing, not pretending. actually embodying the frequency of someone who knows their worth, trusts their path, and expects alignment. What does that person do differently than you're doing now? They probably don't tolerate half-hearted connections. They don't waste time trying to convince people of their value. They don't shrink to make others feel bigger. They don't perform their healing for an audience. They just move through the world with a quiet certainty that what's theirs will find them. And they make decisions from that place, not from fear of loss, not from scarcity, not from proving, from knowing. And when you start making decisions from knowing, everything shifts. Opportunities appear that weren't visible before. People show up who actually see you. Resources flow that seemed blocked. Doors open that you didn't even know you were standing in front of. Because you're no longer leaking energy into misalignment. You're concentrating it, focusing it, directing it toward what actually matters. And the universe responds to concentrated energy. It responds to clarity. It responds to commitment, not loud commitment, quiet commitment. The kind that doesn't need to announce itself because it's too busy taking action. So you stop talking about what you're going to do and you start doing it. Small steps, consistent steps, steps that might not look impressive to anyone watching, but that you know are aligned. Because alignment isn't always obvious. Sometimes it looks like turning down an opportunity everyone else thinks you should take. Sometimes it looks like investing in something no one else understands. Sometimes it looks like walking away from what's good to make space for what's great. And people will question you. They'll tell you you're being too picky, too idealistic, too risky. Let them. Because they're operating from their frequency, not yours. And their frequency might be perfectly fine for them, but it's not yours. Your frequency is calling you towards something specific, something that might not make sense to anyone else. And that's okay. Your inheritance isn't a group project. It's personal, specific, designed for the exact version of you that's emerging right now, not the version you were 5 years ago. Not the version you'll be 5 years from now. This version, which means it won't look like anyone else's. It won't arrive the same way. It won't feel the same. And if you're waiting for it to match someone else's story, you'll miss it when it shows up in yours. Because your story is different. Your path is different. Your frequency is different. And trying to force your journey to look like someone else's is like trying to wear their clothes. It might fit, but it won't feel like yours. And the inheritance only comes to people who are fully in their own story. Not comparing, not competing, not copying, just being, fully, unapologetically, in their own lane, in their own timing, in their own way. That's when the floodgates open. Not because you finally did everything right, because you finally stopped trying to be anything other than what you are. And what you are is enough, has always been enough, will always be enough. The inheritance isn't something you earn. It's something you allow. And you allow it by clearing the blocks. The beliefs that say you're not ready. The fears that say it's not safe. The doubts that say it's too good to be true. The shame that says you don't deserve it. Those aren't truths. Those are frequencies. Old frequencies, inherited frequencies. Frequencies you absorbed from a world that didn't know your worth, but you know now. Or you're starting to. And the more you know, the more you'll clear. And the more you clear, the more you'll receive. Not because the universe suddenly decided to favor you, because you finally stepped into the frequency where receiving is natural, where abundance is expected, where goodness isn't suspicious, where ease isn't uncomfortable, where support isn't shocking, where love isn't conditional. That's your inheritance, not a single event, a new baseline, a new normal, a new frequency that you operate from consistently. And once you stabilize there, everything changes. Your relationships change. Your opportunities change. Your health changes. Your money changes. Your peace changes. Not because you forced it, because you aligned with it. And alignment is magnetic. It pulls toward you what matches and repels what doesn't, which means some things will fall away, some people will fade, some paths will close. And that's not loss, that's recalibration, the universe removing what's in the way so the inheritance can land. And if you fight that process, you delay your own arrival. But if you trust it, if you surrender to it, if you allow it to unfold without resistance, you'll look back in 6 months and barely recognize your life. Not because everything's perfect, because everything's aligned, and alignment feels different than striving. It feels like flow, like ease, like rightness, like coming home to yourself after a long time away. That's what's waiting, not someday, now. The inheritance is already here, already available, already trying to reach you. The only question is whether you're going to keep blocking it with old frequencies or finally let it in. Because it's yours. It's always been yours. You just have to claim it. Not with words, with frequency, with choices, with alignment, with the quiet knowing that you're exactly where you're supposed to be, becoming exactly who you're meant to be, receiving exactly what's meant for you. Nothing more, nothing less, just what's yours. And what's yours is enough. More than enough. It's everything. So stop waiting for permission. Stop looking for signs. Stop needing proof. The inheritance doesn't require faith in the unseen. It requires faith in yourself, in your worth, in your path, in your timing. And if you can find that faith even for a moment, even in the smallest way, that's the crack where the light gets in. That's the opening where everything shifts. That's the moment your frequency changes. And when your frequency changes, your life changes. Not eventually, immediately, right now. This is that moment. You're standing at the threshold, 1 foot in the old frequency, 1 foot in the new, and all you have to do is shift your weight, fully commit to the new, fully release the old, and step through. The inheritance is on the other side, waiting, ready, yours. If you're still here, something in you already knows this is true. You felt it before you could name it. That pull, that recognition, that quiet certainty underneath all the noise telling you to dismiss this as too simple or too good or too convenient. But simple doesn't mean easy, and good doesn't mean unearned. You've been working toward this moment longer than you realize. Every time you chose growth over comfort, every time you walked away from what dimmed your light, every time you trusted yourself when no one else did, those weren't random decisions. They were deposits, building your capacity to hold what's coming. The 10 minutes I mentioned at the beginning, they're not about urgency designed to manipulate you into action. They're about awareness. Right now, in this exact moment, you have a clarity you might not have tomorrow. Tomorrow the doubt will be louder. The fear will have new arguments. The logic will talk you back into what's familiar. But right now, in this space, you know, you feel it. That knowing is your inheritance speaking, and it's asking you to honor it, not with grand gestures or life-altering decisions you're not ready for. Just with one small shift in the direction of alignment, one choice that says I trust this more than I fear it. Maybe that looks like finally having the conversation you've been avoiding. Maybe it's saying no to something everyone expects you to say yes to. Maybe it's investing in yourself in a way that feels reckless but resonates as right. Maybe it's simply sitting in silence and acknowledging out loud that you're ready. Not perfect, not fully prepared, just ready. Because readiness isn't a feeling, it's a decision. And you make it now or you make it later. But later always costs more. Later means more time spent in frequencies that exhaust you, more energy wasted on paths that were never yours, more moments wondering what would have happened if you just trusted yourself when you had the chance. Your inheritance isn't conditional. It doesn't require you to be healed, whole, figured out, or fearless. It requires you to be willing to release what's blocking it, willing to receive what matches it, willing to become the version of yourself who operates from that frequency naturally. And that version already exists, not as some future possibility. As a present reality you keep choosing against because it feels too big, too bright, too exposed. But you weren't designed for small. You weren't built for dim. You weren't created to spend your life hiding. And every day, you choose the familiar over the aligned. You're not playing it safe. You're playing it small. And small is the only real risk here. Because small guarantees you'll look back with regret. Aligned only promises you'll look back with gratitude for trusting yourself when it mattered most. The hidden letter isn't hidden anymore. You've read it. You know what it says. You know what it's asking. And you know what happens next is entirely up to you. The universe has done its part. It's brought you here. It's created the opening. It's removed the obstacles. Now it's waiting, not impatiently, not with judgment, just with readiness, ready to meet you the moment you step fully into your own frequency, ready to reorganize everything around the new version of you, ready to flood your life with what's been held back until you are ready to hold it. And you're ready, not because you feel ready, because you're still here, still reading, still open. That's all the readiness required. Everything else is just fear dressed up as practicality. And fear's job isn't to stop you. It's to make sure you're serious, to make sure you want this more than you want to stay comfortable, to make sure you're willing to trade the known for the aligned. And if you've made it this far, you've already answered that question. You're serious. You're willing. You're done waiting for a perfect moment that will never come, because this moment right now, with all its imperfection and uncertainty, this is the perfect moment. This is when everything changes. Not because the world shifts, because you do, because you stop arguing with your inheritance and start claiming it. Stop questioning your worth and start embodying it. Stop waiting for permission and start moving with authority. The authority that comes from knowing who you are, what you're here for, and what's already yours. That knowing changes everything. It changes how you walk into rooms, how you handle rejection, how you respond to opportunity, how you treat yourself when no one's watching. It becomes your baseline, your default, your frequency. And from that frequency, the inheritance isn't something you chase. It's something you magnetize. Effortlessly, naturally, inevitably, because you've finally stopped being at war with yourself. Stopped splitting your energy between who you were and who you're becoming. You've integrated, aligned, activated, and from that place, there's nothing you can't receive, nothing you can't create, nothing you can't become, not because you're special, because you finally stopped pretending you're not. And that shift, that simple but profound shift from performing unworthiness to embodying your inheritance, that's what changes everything. That's what the last 10 minutes were really about. Not a countdown to loss, a countdown to recognition, to the moment you finally see what's always been true. You're not waiting for your inheritance. Your inheritance is waiting for you. And it's been waiting long enough. So stop reading and start receiving. Stop analyzing and start moving. Stop preparing and start becoming. Because the version of you that has it all doesn't exist in some distant future. They exist right now, in this moment, in this choice, in this frequency. And all you have to do is step into them, fully, completely, without reservation. That's your inheritance, not what you'll get, who you'll become. And who you'll become changes what you'll receive, permanently, irrevocably, powerfully. This is your moment. Not because I'm saying it, because you feel it. And what you do with that feeling determines everything that happens next. Choose alignment. Choose yourself. Choose now.